Well, I know I've been harping on this train since the very beginning.
I know where you're going.
Since the very beginning of the season. That is the
Didn't take you long, did it?
No. I am ready to crow and sing my praises because I have been worried about them since the start of the year, and that is the 8-19 Houston Astros.
Hey, they won yesterday.
Oh.
In Mexico City, by the way, 12-4. So
against another hapless organization in the Colorado Rockies. God, they came into town for the Astros.
Take the Rockies for what ails you, right?
Right. They came into town, for the Astros at the right time because they've really been struggling. And obviously, it doesn't mean that they can't play well this season or they're not going to bounce back and have a period of better play. It's just that when you're 11 games under 500 potentially going into May, your margin for error you just have to start playing exceptionally winning baseball all of the time to catch up.
And the Astros, has sent down. Well, Christian Javier came down with an injury, so they lost him as a starting pitcher. They optioned J.P. France when they another starting pitcher when they brought back Verlander. So their pitching is really been the problem so far. Right, and the hitting has been pretty good actually.
And this is a team that they had a streak going from 2017 to 2023 of making the ALCS, and during that time they were never more than 3 games below 500. They're 11 right now. So. That's a big change. They have not been struggling like this at any point, during their time. So, certainly there's a lot of things to be concerned about. Jose Abreu looks like he is done.
Yeah,
he looks just completely. He's already amassed over 1.5 negative WAR this season, which is it doesn't sound that bad until you realize it's not May.
Yeah, but actually we did start in March, so one of the things about, I think Steve Phillips was saying the other day doesn't it feel like April's been really long? And that's because as a baseball fan, you've been going since March 28th, so this feels like this really long month, even though it's a little more than a month.
Right, it feels like it should be over about now, and we actually have another couple days of the month left.
And so it's funny you say that because I was looking this morning here, we're going to play Sunday games later today, so we have one more game in the weekend set for teams, and most of the teams have played around 27 games, which is about 1/6 of the season. Dodgers have played 29, Braves have played 25, right. So in that range. So basically, you can take times 6
and kind of
come
figure
up
out
with, what are the, Mike Trout's going to get 60 home runs because he's got 10.
Right.
Well, maybe not.
Maybe not. He's not going to hit
of what's going on.
You can start kind of projecting out. It's like we said, a couple weeks ago, they had just completed the first inning of the season. Now we're already down to they've completed a 1/6 of the season. The amount of season that's been completed quickly amasses, and your ability to change what you are shrinks with every day. A guy we're seeing that this discussion is happening is Francisco Lindor, and that he has been playing better. There is no doubt about it. But it is still almost May, and he is hitting 200.
It's just hard, and we won't talk too much about Lindor because we could go on. But every season he starts the season slowly, and he's trying to come back. I can't remember a time where he started the season where he was hitting 370 at the end of April. Right?
But part of the problem is
even 270.
Even 270,
right,
he's hitting under 100 or under 200 a lot of the time coming out of April, and he might be doing that again this year.
But he and this is a good pairing here. So like the Astros, if I had to believe of one team or one player that I thought would turn it around, I would have Lindor as a candidate for that, as a guy to have a good season by the end of the year. And I would think of all the bad teams so far, the Astros, I have the most confidence in turning it around. Right now, it's just a bad April.
Mm-hmm. But you know what? They could play fantastic. They could play 10 games over 500 the rest of the way, and they're a 500 baseball team. The same way Francisco Lindor could hit 280 the rest of the way, 285. He's still a 280, 230 hitter at the end of the season. It only does so much. You can only recover, so to speak, so much in a given year, especially when your hole that you're digging yourself isn't just bad. That's the problem for these teams, is they're starting to get off to not just bad starts, but terrible.
I want you to know that you missed the layup there that I gave you. So when I said times 6, the Astros have 8 wins over a full season. That would be 48 wins. Okay, that would be historically horrible.
Right. Obviously, they're going to play a little bit better. Right. But the same way the White Sox, who are 5-22, aren't going to get 30 wins this season.
Oh my goodness! Just that concept.
Okay, maybe they will. That lineup is truly anemic.
They have a chance, and we said this on a prior podcast, to be worse than the 1962 Mets, which they won 40 games and lost 120. They just didn't even bother to play the other 2 games because it wasn't important.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is concerning for the because they literally cannot hit, and that's not something that's going to fix itself over the course of the season, most likely, unless they bring up some young guys that can suddenly play.
But let's talk about the AL West a little bit because we kind of gave the Astros maybe too much time there.
Thrashing.
Yeah. The Mariners kind of in a week came from being like just a team in the pack, and
they were a team that was thankful for the existence of the Astros, basically, because if the Astros weren't stinking it up, everybody would be talking about how much they were stinking it up until this week.
And this week, and George Kirby is having a great start to the season. Struck out 12, and I don't remember Kirby being a big-time strikeout pitcher.
Well, that D-backs lineup is weird this season. They're one of the best offenses in baseball, but then they also
when they're bad, they're really bad.
Really bad.
But so the Mariners, we've said this about that division, or at least I have, going, I think it's just going to be a dogfight with all those teams.
Right, you've got three solid teams in the AL West,
yes.
And that's counting the Astros.
And two other teams.
but the Athletics are at least a pesky bad instead of an awful this year.
This is all the prelude to the fall for the Athletics. I can't believe people are like, wow, they're kind of fun to watch. No, the closer's great, by the way.
I still described them as bad. I'm just describing them as pesky bad. The same way, like For now, like there are
soon they'll be bad.
Well, they're a 75-win team. That can be annoying. That's not a good baseball team. But they're going to give you the occasion.
They're not going to win 75 games.
Well, they're playing. That's what
right now they are in a place for that.
Right, and so I'm saying if they continue to play that way, and then the Angels are playing around that same level.
All of a sudden, I look at the Angels; they're like 10-17.
They had a really hot start, and then they fell apart.
Yeah, that's kind of what we thought.
But if they should improve because they've been playing particularly bad because I believe either their starting pitching or their bullpen has been awful as of late. I think it was their starting pitching.
And Trout, even with his 10 home runs, he's batting around 220 going today, and his career average, and it isn't super important, but when you have an all-time player like Mike Trout, and his career average just dropped below 300 to 299, it made me think of Albert Pujols, right, who had the career 300 average until the very end of his career, those last couple of years with the Dodgers and after he left the Angels, and I think he slid under 300 and didn't finish his career with it. And for me, as the old-time baseball fan, that 300 career average is still a watershed, a real mark.
But I would never want a guy not to go out there to compete just to protect his 300 career average.
Agreed.
That's the problem, is that I think that I'd rather have the guy go out there trying to be the hitter he is than being like, well, I need to just make sure to get my career average back over 300.
So we were a lot of things come out of doing these weekly podcasts on the This Week in Baseball, and I came up with 2 episodes out of looking at stuff this week, and one of them we'll do a future episode on starting pitchers, making it, maybe changing the criteria for a win for a starting pitcher. It's always been, it's actually been 5 innings, but I didn't realize that before 1950, the rule book didn't even specify that a starting pitcher had to.
So the scorer just kind of awarded it based on who he thought it should go to?
Correct.
Can we just go back to that?
Correct. Right. I think that, and Tyler Kettner wrote this week, and we'll talk about this in another episode, that maybe 4 innings in today's baseball is a better number. So that's just something to think about, and I think that's kind of interesting that I did. And then looking at the Dodgers, I just turned to them for a second. I saw that Shohei Ohtani, in addition to his 7 home runs, has 17 doubles so far this season.
He's already at like 24 extra base hits.
Right. The all-time record for doubles in a season is by Earl Combs, and he had 67 in 1931. And Shohei's on a pace for like 78 doubles, so they probably won't maintain that.
No, but he's on a pace to shatter that record right now.
And what it brought me back to is that, okay, so how about the record for, maybe start thinking about extra base hits in a season, and so that getting to 100 extra base hits, when you really think about it, that's a lot of extra base hits. There's only 15 guys did it in history of Major League Baseball.
Yeah, and only one guy's done it twice.
Right. Well, 14 guys. One guy did it twice. So Shohei has that.
He's on that pace this year.
Because I think he's on a pace for 49 homers, 78 doubles, and 6 triples.
It's like 120 something.
Yeah, exactly. So it'll be interesting just to see if he can maintain that without having to pitch, and focusing only on hitting.
And he's got the protection around him to do it.
And since we're talking about the Dodgers, they were muddling along, and we thought, wow, they're not playing. All of a sudden, they've got like a 5-game lead in the West, and the other teams are doing what we said they do, beating each other up, and the Dodgers are 18-7 or something like that.
And now the Dodgers are just like the start of the season's gone exactly how they would have liked it. Now they're like, okay, we've got a commanding, early lead on the division. We're way up. We can kind of just hit the cruise, enter our normal state of playing, and just kind of we just have to focus on us now. We can tune out all the stuff that whatever the Diamondbacks are saying or the Padres are saying about the West runs through us or something. It's their division. They can just focus on getting healthy and on a postseason.
They're going to get some of that pitching,
Right.
amazing pitching back, and then they're just going to be even more ridiculous to deal with at that point. So, but the Giants, the D-backs, you can muddle them up and say, okay, right now the D-backs are under 500 and all that stuff. It could easily be the other way around 2 weeks from now, but not going to be that far ahead or behind the other teams.
You get
the
that
Padres.
excuse by the end of April. You don't get that excuse at the end of May where, oh, yeah, you could still be under 500 now.
I was talking with somebody the other day about the fact that I was at a ball game on Friday night, and so I went with my best friend from high school, and his brother took us, and we had the really cool seats in the Hyundai Club at Citi Field, and Miles Mikolas went out there for the Cardinals and threw his curveball about, it seemed like a million times, but it really wasn't, and the Mets couldn't hit it at all, and it was kind of like a quiet game, but she was saying, well, his 92-year-old mom was there at the game, and I've known her my whole life, and she goes, well, I can't believe she asked me this question, so how many guys when's the last time guys pitched the whole game, and so how often does that happen anymore? That she had the wherewithal to ask that question. I said, well, it actually happened this week when Max Fried of the Dodgers pitched to Maddux.
Right, he pitched 92 pitches, complete game, just absolutely dominated.
Complete game shutout. So that doesn't happen too much anymore, but guys do pitch complete games, and the whole idea of pitching a complete game these days with less than 100 pitches, I don't think even people were counting pitches back when guys used to throw complete games.
No, and if they did, they'd be in the 150s. And I think you just got to start where just guys are swinging early, guys are swinging often, and you get a bunch of really quick innings that stack up early. Then you're free to just attack, especially if you get a big lead. You can just pump the strike zone all night.
But with all that about pitching a Maddux, it made me think, okay, well, how many times did Maddux pitch a Maddux? Only 11. So
Right.
I guess you should have like 50 of them or something like that.
That's 11 complete games with under 100 pitches.
Complete game shutouts with under 100 pitches.
That's wild when you think about it.
And I think guys were throwing more pitches before, and he was the most economical pitcher
Right,
out
that was
there.
what made it special. Glavine only did it 5.
Right, exactly. So, we've got another game in Mexico City today. We were talking about that, so you can guarantee that a lot of runs will be scored, because what I didn't really think about is that Mexico City Stadium, and I guess there's some talk about the major leagues considering a franchise in Mexico City, although Commissioner Manfred said he's not looking for that right now.
The problem is the stadium.
And the altitude.
But
right?
that's what I'm saying.
It's 2,000 feet higher than Mile High Stadium, 7,000 feet. Ball go really far.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that's the problem, is that there's nowhere to put it there where you would not be playing. We already kind of look at Coors Field as, I think sort of the limit of what we would accept at distorting the game. Mexico City, you would have a team that would basically be playing a different brand of baseball than everybody else.
Yeah, a slugfest.
Right.
And so who's going to... It's like if people don't want to pitch in Colorado, nobody's going to want to pitch in Mexico City. Can we sign a pitcher? No, you're going to have to, put your shortstop in and hope you can get it done. Or the way the Yankees did yesterday, they finished their game with Jose Trevino, the catcher, being the pitcher in the ninth inning, and apparently he threw a couple of knuckleballs, which just has to be a gas for a guy as a catcher out there to go out there and say, you know what?
It's getting frustrating a little bit.
It's 15-3. Why not throw this?
It's kind of be annoying.
Knuckleball. He's probably called out to him and told the guy, here it comes.
I got to imagine it's annoying if you're the player on the other team, because it's like it is disrespectful to have Trevino
just want
out
the
there.
game to be over.
Right.
It's 15-3.
I get it. But you're like, come on. We all
scored a runoff, by the way.
Exactly.
So, we probably should then turn to, let's see, we talked about the AL West, the AL Central. We mentioned, obviously, the White Sox. So do you think the Royals can, and obviously the Cardinals are in first place, do you think the Royals, who still have a very good record, do you think they're made to last this season?
I think that you can't really count. They want to believe that. They want to believe that the starting pitchers that they brought in, like Seth Lugo, can keep up, and Waka can keep up this performance, but they're doing it without striking out a lot of guys, which is really hard, just given that.
Right, you're going to try to miss bats enough to have them not go out of the park.
Now you're playing at a good stadium for it, so that does help. But as the weather warms up and they're not allowing a ton of home runs on fly balls, you worry that all of a sudden all it takes is a little bit of a change, and all of a sudden opponents go from scoring, let's say, 3 runs a game to 4 runs a game, and that can be a really
regression to the mean is in the offing for the Royals, I would say.
We would have also said that about the Marlins last year, that there's no way they could keep playing this well.
And they're not.
And so sometimes a team can just have a year like that where the ball doesn't end up going out of the park that often for whatever reason. The guys keep it in.
But it's been fun, watching the Royals. And when they came to New York and played the Mets I think, the Mets were on a good streak then. And the Royals didn't look as formidable in that series, nor did the Pirates, who came in after that and got swept.
They both really struggled.
But they left and went out after that, the Royals, and they've played very well since then. So credit to them for not letting sort of a slap in the face, put them down. And they're trying to stay with the Guardians, who are just scratching your head good, as we talked about in our last podcast with the bats. And even pitching wise, without Shane Bieber, they have been getting it done.
Now again, they're also helped by playing in what is otherwise a pretty weak AL Central, and there's definitely been some weird scheduling quirks this year where it seems like some teams have played significantly harder schedules just based on who's been good than other teams. So it'll be interesting to see what happens as you play another month in the MLB season and some of these weird scheduling quirks kind of even out a bit.
And the Royals have been really good at home, not good on the road. The Tigers, conversely, who are right behind the Royals, they have been really good on the road and really bad at home. So I probably would look at the Tigers and go, I think I have more faith in them turning around their home record and getting better over time than the Royals sustaining,
an unbelievable home performance.
Exactly. So, and then the Twins, they're just bumping along at 13 and 13. They're fine. They're just going to wait and things. I just still think that's the team.
Byron
division.
Buxton has not been good this year, and I worry that that's a lineup that was already not exactly the best lineup, and if he's not chugging along at a star level, not even a superstar level, just a star level, I worry they don't have enough firepower to really be able to just bang their way back.
I don't know. I mean, when's the last time the Twins could count on Byron Buxton to play anything?
Last year, he was a huge part of that team.
Was he?
Yeah,
Did he really have that good a season?
He had a very good
I guess
year
I just
year.
think of him like eventually he's going to get hurt and and not going to play. So that's what it has. And if we go to the East, and we have a really great series coming up this weekend between the top two teams, and that would be the Yankees and the Orioles. And they will play a series this week.
Four-game series.
A four-game series, So that's really, I think, the circled series for the upcoming week. The Yankees.
I mean, even without Judge playing particularly well, Soto's been playing great. So you have to think that Aaron Judge, who's hitting 190, is going to improve. That's going to make that lineup really formidable once he does.
I don't know, though, that they're going to get DJ LeMahieu back. And you were claiming when I was saying I really like this player and how he's going to contribute. Well, he hasn't. And now there's sort of thinking on my part and maybe some others that I'm not sure if he's going to come back and do something this season.
I was telling you he was shot.
So, and shot, I didn't realize he was that much in trouble physically that, I think he hit a ball off his foot or whatever it is, but that would be the kind of thing that could take him out of the lineup for as long as it has, and there's no real indication that he's going to be getting back in there soon.
The Yankees are also weird with their medical issues. Guys will go off the field for, like a seemingly non-injury and then disappear for months and nobody understands what's going on. That happened with Judge last year.
Right. And the Yankees can take some heart as the Mets will with Kodai Senga, that the Yankees, Garrett Cole is starting to throw and looks like he will be coming back, I assume sometime in June. I don't think he's scheduled to come back before that. And a healthy Garrett Cole is essential for the Yankees to compete to the end of the season with a very good Oriole team. And it's interesting because they sent down Jackson Holiday, right? They brought him up, and he had his little struggles and all that stuff. And then there's so many young guys on that team. I wrote an article about Cedric Mullins this week, who I love as a player, and he's the guy nobody talks about in center field, but Jordan Westberg, Gunnar Henderson, Rutschman,
Colton
Cowser. I mean, they just got a zillion guys who are young players that are killing it. So what a great thing to do to be able to send Jackson Holiday down going, we don't need you to do this right now. Go get yourself fixed. We don't need you bad enough that we got to keep you up here and let you learn on the job.
And let you, just flounder out there. It's got to be tough. But they're like, okay, we thought he was ready. He wasn't. We'll send him back down, and we'll bring him back up when we think he's ready again.
Right. The Blue Jays are doing Blue Jays things. Sometimes good, sometimes not. Sometimes good, sometimes not. That would be the Blue Jays. And the Rays, they play the Mets this week. And so I thought about the Rays going, okay, name 3 starting pitchers for the Tampa Bay Rays.
I thought you were going to make it easy and be like, name 3 starters.
Well, even starting pitchers.
Starting pitchers, I don't even know if I could name one right now.
Well, the guy who went from Philly there, who is, I think, their de facto number 1 because there's so many.
Eflin?
Eflin is their number 1 right now.
Wow.
We know all the other guys. So Aaron Savali came over from Cleveland.
Yeah.
He is, I guess, the number 2. But Zach Littell, Tyler Anderson, and Ryan Pepio are the other starters because Shane Baz, Taj Bradley, Jeffrey Springs, Drew Rasmussen, Shane McClanahan are all not able to pitch and on the injured list. And boy, that's almost Dodger-like in how good those guys are as starters who aren't pitching.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know what to make of the Rays this year. I always underestimate them.
But the same way I've been out on the Blue Jays this year, I've been feeling like this is the year the Rays finally. So it's like I can't really feel like I called it that they're not playing that great right now. Randy Arozarena has been not good this year so far. He's really been.
They're having trouble scoring runs, and hopefully that'll continue for at least another few days.
Hopefully they're going to figure that out when they come to New York.
And so I guess the only division we really didn't talk about, we didn't talk about the NL East, but we also have the NL West, NL Central.
The NL East, you can basically say things are going as expected. You have the Braves, the Phillies, the Mets, the Nationals, and the Marlins.
In order of predicted finish.
What we expected. I think we didn't expect the Marlins to be quite this bad.
No, I don't think so either. Although I thought they'd be worse.
We both thought they would be bad. We didn't think they would be worse than the Nationals.
And it's also true of the NL Central. I think Milwaukee, to me, has outperformed what I expected. Maybe everybody.
I mean, the Cardinals being a last place team until they showed up and beat the Mets the last 2 days. They still. I still don't believe in that team. That they have looked better. Their starting pitching has looked very good the last 2 days. And I think that was certainly
the Mets will tell you that.
It certainly looked better because of Adrian Hauser. But I think that the NL Central, that's going to be an interesting division after the trading deadline. I feel like I'm going to kind of tune that division out until the trade deadline because any of those teams in that division could make a move. The only team I don't see making a move to make a run is the Pirates.
Right.
They're the only team.
Right.
I could see.
They're 500 now, so their great start is already.
But you know what? If the Pirates played about 500 baseball and threatened for a
the
while,
rest of the year, that'd be amazing.
Thrilled. Yeah, they would be thrilled if they were.
And you're going to hold off bringing up Paul Skeens, who if I read
one
story a week about this guy, it's like he's got a minor league pitcher, and I read more about him than I do about major league players.
Yeah, apparently he's quite the minor league pitcher.
So the Cubs, lost Cody Bellinger. Now he's going to be on the injured list.
And that
for a while.
was something you were always worried about.
Yeah. But I still think they're going to be there at the end of the season. The Reds have played better, so that division, like the NL East, has sort of settled out to kind of be
right now. The National League, with the exception of the Milwaukee Brewers being better than the expected, and depending on who you talk to, the Diamondbacks and the Giants and the Padres being a little quote unquote worse than expected.
Just a little though.
Like a little. The NL is basically playing out really most of baseball is playing out how you more or less expected it, with the exception of the Guardians maybe being a little better than people expected, and the only standout surprise is the Astros being bad.
It's still month one, so we have to really, you could look at an 18 and whatever the Guardians are, 19 and 8 team, here we are on Sunday. Could you see them 22 and 16? It still would be good, but that would also be a 3 and 7 stretch to get there. So, it can happen. And I think that, they're going to sort of come back to the group of teams in the AL Central. How about any big performances in month one that kind of strike you as like, oh, wow, I didn't expect that from this guy?
Well, Elly de La Cruz has been unbelievable. He's got 17 steals already this season. Like, Acuna seemed
17 times 6. Let's see. Let's add. That's 102.
Right, yeah. Acuna has been relatively quiet with only 11 steals, on pace for 66. Yeah, really.
But he's only hitting like 250 with one homer.
But they've been very good. I think, honestly, Pete's been pretty good to start the year. He's kind of been the one Mets player that's really just consistently performed.
Got his 200th home run yesterday.
Got his 200th home run. I think we mentioned a bunch of those young Oriole hitters, including Colton Cowser, has just been unbelievable, for them. So those are the guys that I kind of focus on. And there have been, I think what's been more interesting is the guys that have really struggled this year. There have been a bunch of people that have, Blake Snell's looked like a mess for that signing.
Yeah, and he was talking about the fact that he refused an assignment to the AAA club to get a couple of rehab starts, unlike Jordan Montgomery, who went down there and pitched a couple times in AAA and came out pitching very well in his first game. So they got a couple of extra starts out of Snell, but they were bad starts. And so now he's got to defend. He goes, I could have been better, and I really didn't feel like I needed my pitching is good. My sequencing is bad, is what he's saying.
Which is interesting because you'd think that would be something that he's not totally in control of, so that'd be the easiest thing to fix.
Well, who are you blaming, right? If you're talking about your sequencing, it sounds like you're blaming not yourself,
right?
Maybe the catcher Scherzer or something like that.
Or the pitching coach, yeah.
So I think that's been a bit of a disappointment, but I expect him to pitch better because he always
Soto's
does.
been unbelievable to start the year too.
Yeah, you mentioned him, and and we talked about some of the guys on the Orioles, obviously, getting off to great starts. So
and after watching Tyler Glasnow pitch, that elbow seems fixed. The guy's unbelievable.
That's like the signing of the offseason in a way, because I really believe Glasnow has managed to keep the Dodgers together by having a guy out there who goes out there and looks dominant.
And I didn't even think about how much pressure it helps take off Yamamoto, not having to be the guy in that rotation.
Exactly, and he's pitching better and better as
right,
time
he's getting
goes.
more and more used to it. I think it's interesting that, for all of the stuff that came about how unbelievable his stuff is, he's been good, but not dominant in the way that you kind of expected him, given the way that people talked about how much better his stuff seemed, even in comparison to Senga, who was unbelievable last year. They were talking about like Yamamoto, like he was in a completely different level than a guy like that. So,
well, and then what about Imanaga,
Right.
who has pitched better than you could have even hoped for if you're the Cubs.
right, I think you worry. It's like, okay, he's not going to be this good, so how good is he actually?
Right. When he comes back to earth, what's it going to look like? When the wind starts blowing out at Wrigley,
Right.
What's that going to be like? There's going to be whiplash. So we've got some interesting series. We mentioned the Yankees being in Baltimore for 4 games, and then the Yankees come home to play the Tigers. So it should be an interesting read for the Bronx Bombers. The Astros, which you started this for, are going to play at home against the Guardians. That's a very interesting series. It's also a 4-game series. Oh, yeah, for the Astros, because if they got swept by that Guardians, it would...
I'm just saying, they're running out of time to get things called interesting series, because at a certain point, it's like, no, it's just a first-place team playing a last-place team. You're not interesting anymore. You're just bad.
And then the Astros entertained the Mariners for a weekend series, so this is a seminal week for the Astros, I think.
We said that...
went really bad. No.
We said that last week, too.
Yeah, right now they're 3-7 in their last 10, so was not a good stretch for them at all. But at 8-19, you can't have a 1-6 week.
I think we're already at that point where they. I mean, we said that kind of last week that they needed to turn it around, and now we're saying, okay, we really needed to turn around this week. If they have another 1-6 week, are you ready to just say they're done?
Right.
If they're 9-23 going into next Sunday.
It's getting harder to do that now. Now you have reason for concern. I don't think that'll happen, but if it does, we'll talk about that. Going, okay, I think I'm turning to think that they might not be able to come back.
They might not be able to come back at 14 games under 500.
yeah. Well, it's happened before.
When you were relying on miracle precedents,
very good. Yeah. You went for the Miracle Braves of 1914.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. Well, the Miracle Braves of 1914 did it. Ah yes. Well, we'll certainly get another miracle.
The Dodgers and the Diamondbacks at the Diamondbacks, and then they come back to L.A. and they face the Braves. So that's an interesting week for the Dodgers to see, okay, are they really the class of the National League?
I think it's more of you get a fun series between the best team in the NL East and the best team in the NL West with the Braves and the Dodgers.
Yeah, and I think you always want to watch that, kind of a series. I picked my stinker series of the week.
It's kind of cheating because you have the Marlins playing the Athletics.
Yes.
The grand total of the fan watching that matchup.
How many fans do you figure for that 3-game series in Oakland?
I think there's about 38,000 of them disguised as empty seats.
Will they total 15,000 fans for the 3 games?
Oh, for the 3 games.
And the new park the Athletics are in is going to only seat in Sacramento. I think it seats 14,000.
So, question: will they get more fans than the seating capacity of their new stadium?
I think. It's not a new stadium. I mean, the stadium they play in for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
I think so. So it's no pitcher injuries last week to speak of, big ones, which is kind of the first time this season.
Right, and that's why we saw a bunch of good starting pitchers.
Guy's arm fell off and he's going to be out. None of that kind of stuff happens.
Maybe we're past that. All the guys that were going to get hurt got hurt.
I sure hope so. But I'm really stoked for some of these series coming up this week.
Yeah, it should be good baseball.
We'll talk about it next week.